All right, chapter 6, Saiphong. Mario took the IRT local subway downtown. He held the matchbox up at the level of his chest so that the cricket could see out. This was the first time Chester had been able to watch where he was going on the subway. The last time he had been buried under the roast beef sandwiches, and he hung out of the box, gazing up and down the car. Chester was a curious cricket, and as long as he was here in New York, he meant to see as much as he could. He was staring at an old lady wearing a straw hat, wondering if the flowers on it were real, and if they were, what they would taste like. When the train lurched to a halt, like most people who first ride the subway, Chester wasn't used to the abrupt stop, and he toppled out of the matchbox and into Mario's lap. The boy picked him up again. "You've got to be careful," he said, putting his finger over the open end of the matchbox so that there was just enough room for Chester to poke his head out. At the Canal Street stop, Mario got off and walked over several blocks to Chinatown. Chester craned his neck. So craned means stretched out as far as he could to get his first look of New York by day. The buildings in this part of town weren't nearly as high as they were in Times Square, but they were still high enough to make Chester Cricket feel very small. In Chinatown, as Papa had said, all the shops were closed. Mario walked up and down the narrow, curving streets, zigzagging across them so that he could look into the window on both sides. In some, he saw the cardboard shells that open up into beautiful paper flowers if you put them into a glass of water. And in others, the glass-winged harps that tinkle when they're hung in the wind, where the breeze can reach them, but he couldn't find a cricket cage anywhere. Down at the end of an alley, there was an especially old shop. The paint was peeling off the doors, and the windows were crammed with years and years' collections of knickknacks. A sign hanging out in front said, "Saiphong Chinese Novelties," and printed underneath it in small letters was, "Also, do hand laundry." Sitting cross-legged on the doorstep was an old Chinese man, and he was wearing a silk vest over his shirt with dragons embroidered on it in red thread. He was smoking a long white clay pipe. Mario stopped and looked in the shop window. The old Chinese man didn't turn his head, but he looked slyly at the boy out of the corner of his eye. Slowly, he drew the pipe out of his mouth and blew a puff of smoke into the air. "Are you Mr. Fong?" asked Mario. The man smoothly twisted his head, as if it were on a pivot, and looked at Mario. "I say Fong," he answered. His voice sounded strange, yet musical, like a plucked violin. Saiphong had come from China many years ago, and he had a curious way of talking. But Mario liked it very much. He enjoyed the individual chirps of human beings almost as much as those of his crickets. "Ah, well, I would like to buy a cricket cage, if you have any," said Mario. Saiphong put the pipe back into his mouth and took a few puffs, and his eyes became very narrow, and than they had been before. "Oh, you got cricket?" he asked, finally in a voice so soft that Mario could hardly hear it. "Yes, here he is." And he opened the matchbox. Chester and Saiphong looked at each other. "Ah, very good," said Saiphong, and a remarkable change came over him. He suddenly became very lively, almost dancing a jig in the sidewalk. "Oh, you got cricket very good. Ah, ah, ah." And he was laughing delightedly. Mario was startled by Saiphong's quick change. Well, I want to buy him a house, he said. Oh, come in shop, please, said Saifong, and he opened the door and they went in. Mario had never seen such a cluttered room. It was a jumble of Chinese odds and ends. Everything from silk robes to chopsticks to packages of hand laundry littered the shelves and the chairs. There was a faint, sweet smell of incense in the air. Saifong brushed a pile of Chinese papers to the floor. You sit, please, he said, motioning Mario to the chair that he had cleared. I back soon. And he disappeared through a door at the back of the shop. Mario sat very quietly. He was afraid that if he moved, that he would be buried under an avalanche of Chinese novelties. In a glass case right in front of him was a row of Chinese goddesses carved in ivory. They all had the strangest smile on their lips, as if they knew something nobody else did, and they seemed to be staring straight at Mario. He tried to look at them, but he couldn't keep it up and had to look away. And in a few minutes, Saifong came back into the room. He was carrying a cricket cage in the shape of a pagoda. There were 7 tiers to it, and each one a little smaller than the one below, and it ended in a slender spire. The lower parts of the cage were painted red and green, but the spire was golden. And at one side was a gate with a little latch on it. Mario wanted to own that cage so much that he tingled all over, but it looked awfully expensive. Saifong held up the first finger of his right hand and said solemnly, this very ancient cricket cage. Once cricket who belonged to the Emperor of all China lived in this cage. You know the story of first cricket? No, sir, said Mario. Very good, said Saifong. I tell. So he sat the cage down and took the clay pipe out of his pocket. When it was lit and a thread of smoke was curling up from the bowl, he used the pipe to emphasize what he said, drawing little designs like Chinese writing in the air. All right, so here is Saifong. You see Saifong? And here is Mario, and they're in his shop. It is extremely cluttered, isn't it, boys and girls? Oh, long ago, in beginning of time, were no crickets, but were very wise man who knew all things. This man had a name, Hai-Shu, and spoke only truth. All secrets were open to him. New thoughts of animals and men. He desired a flower and tree. He knew destiny of sun and stars. And the high gods who live in a palace at summit of heaven, the Hai-Shu, because of truth he spoke. Now from many lands come men to hear their fate from Hai-Shu. To one he say, very good, live long as cedar tree on mountainside. To other he say, you are a wicked man, die soon, goodbye. But to all men, Hai-Shu, speak only true. Of course, wicked men most unhappy when hear what Hai-Shu say. They think I, a wicked man, no one ever know how wicked I am. So altogether wicked men decide to kill Hai-Shu. Hai-Shu knew very well they won't kill him. He know everything, but he not care. Within his heart, like smell of sweetness within hours, a lotus bloom, Hai-Shu have peace. And so he wait. But high gods who live in palace at summit of heaven would not let Hai-Shu be killed. More precious to them than kings was this little old man who spoke only truth. So when wicked men raised sword above Hai-Shu, High God changed him into cricket. And man who spoke only truth and knew only things now sing songs that no man understand and don't mean love. But had God's understanding smile. For to them beautiful song of cricket is song of one who speak truth, know all things. Saiphong stopped speaking and smoked his pipe silently. Mario sat still too, looking at a cricket cage. He was thinking about that story and how much he wanted that cage. In his matchbox, Chester Cricket had listened carefully. He was very touched by the tale of Hai Shu. Of course, he couldn't tell if it was true, but he sort of believed it because he personally had always thought that there was more to his song than just chirping. As usual, when he didn't know what else to do, he rubbed one wing across the other. A single clear note sounded in the shop. Saiphong lifted his head. A smile curled up both ends of his ancient lips. Ah, so Cricket has understood. And he puffed a few more times. Mario wanted to ask him how much the cage cost, but he was afraid to. Because this cricket is so remarkable, I sell cage for 15 cents. And Mario sighed with relief. He could afford that. In his pocket he found a nickel and a dime, all that was left of his weekly allowance, which was a quarter. I'll take it, Mr. Fong, he said, and handed Saiphong the money. Ooh, I also make present free, said Saiphong, and he went behind the counter and took a little bell, no bigger than a honeybee, out of the drawer. With a piece of thread, he hung it up inside of the cage. Mario put Chester into the cage. The cricket jumped up and knocked against the bell. It tinkled faintly. Oh, it sounds like littlest bell in Silver Temple far off up Yangtze River, said Saiphong. Mario thanked him for the bell and the story and everything. And as he was about to leave the shop, Saiphong said, Oh, you want Chinese fortune cookie? Well, I guess so, said Mario. I've never had one. Saiphong took down a can from the shelf. It was full of fortune cookies, thin wafers that had been folded so that there was air space in each one. Mario bit into the cookie and found a piece of paper inside. He read what it said out loud. Good luck is coming your way. Be ready. Ah, hee, laughed Saiphong. 2 high notes of joy. Very good advice. You go now. Always be ready for happiness. Goodbye. That's it, boys and girls.